coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning. I live by the river.
Hello everybody and welcome to the 6 by the Minute Arsenal podcast this season, a celebratory one I think given the recent events. I am Matt H and I'm delighted again to be joined by Matt V. Hello Matt.
Hello. Gradually we're getting more and more upbeat tone on these podcasts. This is probably as good as it's been.
That is a very good point, yeah, because we didn't start brilliantly with the Liverpool game, but since then things have been the trend has been correct, so in the right direction. We talked about this a little bit in the last couple of pods I think with Pete, and thanks to him for stepping in, but well, let's get on with it then. Just the one game since we last did a pod, and it was Chelsea, and it was a, dare I say, comfortable 3-0 victory, 3 first half goals, and I can't even think of where to start with the positive stuff, let alone any criticism, which I shouldn't be because I can't think of anywhere. But let's start with the lineup first of all. So again, we saw Sanchez up front with Iwobi continuing to start, Coquelin in midfield. Matt, we haven't spoken for a couple of weeks. How do you think this is all starting to sort of shape up in that regard?
I think after maybe an uncertain start with Sanchez up front, I think it's definitely improved. I think he's definitely benefited from playing with Ozil behind him, and his movement gives us a lot of options. In terms of midfield, still a bit surprised we haven't seen Xhaka start as much as he might have. But I mean, can't really complain with how it's turned out. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, can
the long shots, but yeah, no more of those long shots. I think that's passing.
We lost you for a second there, but yes, Xhaka and his long shots. Yes, that's a good point. Well, of course, jumping ahead to one of other things. Of course, Coquelin is going to be out for a couple of games. It seems not as long as perhaps was first feared. I've seen 3 weeks mentioned somewhere.
Yeah.
So we may be seeing a bit more of Xhaka in the first team, but we'll come to that in a bit. The Cahill howler. Now, I've watched that first goal a few times. I'm not sure if Cahill actually passes it back or if Sanchez actually gets his foot between his legs and sort of kicks it and then goes hell for leather after it. Not that it really matters, of course, which is the nice thing. But the other great thing I liked about that was the anticipation of Sanchez, which I think they picked up on Match Today as well in the evening, which was almost before the ball was at Cahill, he was on his way. It was almost like he was sniffing around for a chance. I thought it was a really good sign, personally.
Yeah, you think, having seen what happened at Swansea, Cahill would be maybe a bit keener to get the ball away quickly, especially when you see Sanchez charging at you. But yeah, not going to complain. And once he did get the ball, very composed, gave us a great start.
Yeah, it was one of those ones, wasn't it, where he's running towards it. You've got long enough to start worrying as a fan. And but yes, the fine job. I mean, the second goal is worth mentioning, I think, because they're all worth mentioning because it was 3 goals against Chelsea, which we'll enjoy. But that was Arsenal just ticking into gear, just as the way we'd like them to do every game, wasn't it? I mean, I loved Bellerin's final cross. Actually, I thought that was just perfect. But of course, the whole build up to it was fantastic as well.
Yeah, they clearly got a lot of confidence from going 1-0 up early on, and Chelsea started really deep, gave us a lot of room to pass the ball, which probably played into our hands. And yeah, I think it was Ozil and Iwobi who played the 1-2 before Bellerin and Walcott combined. I mean, we'll probably come on to it, but Walcott in particular, I thought had a brilliant game, especially with his work rate. Seems to have had a big change in attitude over the summer, much to his benefit.
Yeah, I mean, we'll stick with him actually, because I did see something earlier today saying he's made more, I think it was tackles rather than interceptions or anything, more tackles this year already than he's made in the last 1 or 2 seasons added together or something.
Yeah.
So that's quite something. I mean, yeah, he's getting a bit older. Maybe there is a bit of maturity or something. Maybe he's seeing the end of his career. Not yet, but in the distant, it's not quite as far away as it was, a few years ago. So perhaps he's thinking, right, I'm just going to. We don't really know what's going on inside the club previously. If he has been difficult, should we say, or just wanted to look for a move away, or made any demands about what he wants to do. I mean, maybe he's just realised, well, that's not going to work. And you can't get away. You'd hope that people like Sanchez and Ozil and the other professionals around the place who are coming there as big names, or becoming, some of them becoming big names as well, are setting the standard, if you like.
Yeah.
You can't get away with. I'm not suggesting he had tantrums or anything, but with not just getting on with it. They're all being paid very well. The latest news is that Ozil's going to sign another contract, which will be lovely. I mean, technically, of course, all that means is we might get some more money if we ever sell him, rather than he's actually going to be there. He's actually going to be there for years. But it shows a certain commitment. There was a lot of badge kissing on Saturday as well, I noticed.
There was, which is always a risky move. The type of people that will appear on social media in 2 years when you leave, normally.
That's it. Be careful about that kind of thing. Another one of the players I was going to mention, and they all are worthy of mention, is Bellerin, who I enjoyed his pass to the goal, but everyone really took a part in that goal. But that's the tackle, of course, in the second half when he ran back and got the ball from. It was Costa. No, it wasn't Costa, was it? Was it Costa? Pedro, sorry, thank you. Yes, it was brilliant. And again, the way he closed down and the perfectly timed tackle, I thought, just to me summed up all the good things he brings to the team. The cross in the first play for the goal, and then later on showing his defensive work as well, and that great speed he's got.
Yeah, he's obviously when he first came into the team, a lot of it was based on his pace and going forward, but defensively. By going forward so much, it does leave space at times, but he does have the pace to get back and cover. Now, he is a player I would worry about potentially leaving in the future.
Did I see DNA mentioned by a Barcelona director the other day about him? I have
Probably.
I think I did. I don't think I'm even making that up anymore. I think I actually saw a Barcelona somebody, some exec was talking about DNA already. So
yeah.
I say already. Obviously, we've had the benefit of him for a couple of years now. But yeah, I think, yes, that would be a terrible shame. But he seems like Fabregas, in terms of being pretty committed to the cause, at the moment at least.
Yeah, I've never really. One thing about him is his accent. So
that's fantastic.
Grew up in Barcelona, but has been here long enough to have a pretty like London accent, really.
Yes.
Very confusing.
It is. It's great. I love hearing it. He doesn't do that many interviews, but I don't know why, because his English is perfectly fine. But as you say, it's always a good one to listen to because because of the way he speaks. I mean, we're happy with the great performance. The third goal, I don't think Ozil meant to bang it into the ground first, but that was a lovely way to top things off. The second half then was just controlled, wasn't it? It was just, we're in charge. We know what we're doing. Chelsea. I mean, people have said, Chelsea are pretty rubbish, but they were doing okay before this. They weren't setting the world alight, but they were, they had the same number of points as us, if I remember rightly. So we do seem to be trending in the right direction now, I think, which is nice. Which brings me on to this point then about, are we ever going to see Giroud and Perez play again? I mean, I'm exaggerating there for effect, but obviously we have other competitions, a couple of which coming up this week, which we can, we might see different things happen. But do we think now this is the way it's going? Sanchez is just going to be our main man and will only change things around occasionally?
It does look like it. At the beginning of the season, you would have probably said when Giroud or Perez were fully fit, they'd start. But Sanchez has obviously picked up his form. I think Perez is probably the more likely to come in and can probably play wide as well as up front. I think Giroud will, on the whole, be used as a sort of off the bench player to hold up the ball maybe later in the game when we're trying to hold on to a lead. But yeah, at the moment, you're not seeing an obvious way that either of them get back into the team, really.
No, I mean, I spoke with Pete either in the last pod or the one before now about how some players seem to come into the team almost by stealth. I think when we're talking about Iwobi, he gets picked a couple of times and before you know it, he's sort of, he's the player, he's in the team. It can happen the other way around, of course, and with Giroud, I don't think anyone really thought over the last couple of years he wouldn't be starting pretty much every game. Yeah. But obviously things have happened. It's not really about new players in this case. It's a different system jiggling people around, and at the moment it seems to be working. I've always had a lot of time for Giroud. I know a lot of people have said he isn't good enough to summarise it, but I've always felt he's done the job we've asked of him. he's been the big-ish man in the box and getting on the end of things quite often. So it's a little unfortunate for him, but ultimately, if the team's winning, that's the way they're going to go, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm sure he still does have a lot to offer, I'm sure. As you said, with our squad depth now, we can look to give all the competitions a good go. Sort of as we've seen in the League Cup or whatever fancy name they've given it.
Yes.
It's not so much about playing youngsters anymore, but sort of the other people in the squad that haven't been able to get a game usually.
Yeah, I think we used to play youngsters because we didn't have those other players. But I think as we saw in the team for the Forest game, obviously there are still a couple of youngsters there, and that's great to have them coming through. But when you're looking at the names on that sheet, including Gibbs, of course, being the captain, just as an example, you can see there's something. There is that depth, which I'm sure the players would like to be playing in the first team if they can, but I'm sure they're also happy to be contributing. I suppose you've got to keep that balance. It's interesting. We could probably go on about the Chelsea game for hours and laugh at Diego Costa and all the rest of it. Emmanuel, I admitted how scared I was of him in the last pod, I think, or my fear of him. But yeah, he was obviously having a terrible time, and that Koscielny, yet another great performance. A lot of people were talking about Koscielny and Mustafi really getting their partnership going, which is another promising thing for as far as Arsenal are concerned. But we'll move on from that for the moment and move to the English Football League Cup, I think is all it is. I think they've done the opposite of a fancy title with it. It's just trying to make it as dull as possible. So we got past Forest, we got Reading. And the only thing to mention about that now, that game takes place at some point next month, I can't remember exactly when it is of course, I then had to look at the game from, I forgot what year it was, 2011 maybe, it was later than that. The 4-0 down, 4-4, 7-5. And watching that game again was Arshavin was playing, which was the first thing that took me aback. And Shamak also was involved, and that makes you realise how quickly things change just in a few years. And that was there was Walcott, I think, was one of the players playing. I don't think there were many others that have spanned both games. But what would you like us to really take the League Cup, whatever they're calling it, seriously this year? Would you like us to, and not that we don't take it seriously, I think, but would you want us to, would a run in the League Cup be a pleasant thing or a distraction?
I'd certainly be up for a run. I think February, I think that's when they play the final. February is usually when we start to lose some momentum in the league. So I think having a cup final to sort of keep our focus on, I think would be a good thing. And watching the draw, I think we've got a great chance because you're watching the draw in City drew United, Liverpool City, and Liverpool Tottenham, and West Ham Chelsea. So there's going to be 2 or 3 big teams guaranteed to go out. So I think there's one more round to the quarterfinals?
Yes, I think that's right. I think this is the round of 16, as you might call it.
So I think there could be a chance with our squad depth to go far this time.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a good way of thinking. I hadn't thought about the other ties, but yes, you're completely right. Of course, we'll knock a few of the bigger teams out. Although West Ham, Chelsea, don't know, neither of those teams having a particularly great season. I'm making the most of the Chelsea suffering while it inevitably won't last very long. So let's zip along then to 2 games this week. So obviously tonight is our second Champions League game. We are at home to Basel, however many different ways of saying it. We got that great result in Paris, not particularly great performance necessarily, but a great result in Paris. We need to win this tonight. We don't need to, but we should be looking to win this game, shouldn't we? If we can really try and finish top of the group, which would be lovely. And Xhaka, you assume, will be playing, and will be playing his brother, which I assume they've also done a few times previously as well. But so we're assuming Xhaka will come in for this.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe I think Cazorla's played all of the previous games, so we might see him get a rest. Maybe El Neni play alongside Xhaka. I don't know how many changes he will make, whether he wants to try and keep up the momentum that we've built or try and keep it fresh. So it'll be interesting to see what Wenger does.
Yeah, and our chances of finishing in the top two, we think, were done a favour by that Parish result. Finishing top, and we've talked about this previously, just because you finish top doesn't guarantee you an easier draw in the next round, but it would seem to help. So if we can, a nice win tonight would be nice. I did see that Basel have scored quite a few goals recently. They've got I'm going to get this wrong, but they've scored 3 or more in most of their last 9 matches or something.
Right.
So I don't know if we'll have to be wary of attacks, or whether they're just going to come and be happier with a draw anyway. But
I guess these games, the ones we're expected to win, have often been the ones we've struggled in the group stage. So last year we beat Bayern Munich at home, but we obviously struggled against Olympiacos and whoever the other team was. So I think it is important to get the 3 points. Because on paper, this is one of the games that should be the banker, really.
Should be, and then we've got the two games against the Ludogorets coming up back to back. So, with all due respect to them, you would assume Arsenal were better than that team, just based on ranking, if nothing else. I don't know enough about them, to be honest, but we'll certainly get an idea after the first sort of half hour of that game. So the point being, we could be in a very strong position after the next 3 games, which would then give us a different issue of, do we want to rest players, or do we want to go for the first place? I'm feeling very optimistic at the moment, which is why I can say all these things. This is before we lose 1-0 at home tonight or something.
Probably.
But we'll talk about that next week, so we'll see how that goes. So then we have Burnley on Sunday away. We have a run of games coming up that you would, again, without being arrogant about it, you would think would be winnable. Burnley away would be one, although of course they did win themselves on Monday night, so they'll be feeling quite good. Any thoughts particularly about this particular game?
I think I've looked out of our next 6 games. This is, in all competitions, this is the only one we've got away from home.
Okay.
For some reason, I don't know if I've just imagined this, but I do feel like we've struggled a couple of times. I remember us going to Burnley. I guess they play a very different style of football, but the Arsenal team now is probably a bit stronger, more able to combat that. Burnley, I think they were bottom of the league or near enough, and then they did beat Watford. So I think it could be one of those, you don't really know what Burnley are going to turn up.
No, yes, or indeed what Arsenal. I suppose the issue here, or the interesting discussion point here, is not necessarily specifically about Burnley. It's actually about, are Arsenal able to? There's been a bit of talk recently about Arsenal looking harder. Isn't really quite what I mean, but more professional, finishing, be able to finish the job. Do what they need to do to get results. So I suppose this is another test of that, really.
Yeah, definitely. It's another test for Koscielny and Mustafi. Need to be strong at the back. I think their striker Grays will still be suspended. So, again, it's another one of those you'd expect us to win, but as ever, you have no idea what's going to happen.
No, and it's going to be one of those ones that's easier to look at afterwards, as it were, than before. But we should. It was Zagreb was the other team in the Champions League last year, just to.
That was it, yeah.
Just to help you out. But your point about the home record, of course. It was Barcelona, wasn't it? We played last year. I'm thinking of Monaco, which was the year before. Just it's so many disappointing home games.
More than for one disappointment.
It's difficult to narrow it down. Okay, well that's great. We'll see how that goes this week in terms of the Champions League and the Premier League back at the weekend. And it'd be nice to get a few wins together, given what we've got coming up. So we're sort of done for the week. We've zoomed through a few things because we only had the one game to review. But as we have a moment or two, I was going to mention, as everyone else has, it's 20 years of Arsene Wenger. I think he officially took over on the 1st of October 96, if I'm getting my dates right, but he actually turned up at the club a little bit before that and was involved in some player purchases and discussions and suggestions. I'm not sure there's too much we can add to the lots of stuff that's been written already over the 20 years. About the 20 years, about all the the changes he made to football, or all the things we now expect as Arsenal fans, which perhaps we wouldn't have dreamed of thinking about 20 years ago. Matt, is there any one particular aspect of his reign, if you like, if I could put it that you would pick out as something that's a good thing or a bad thing for that matter?
Well, obviously the first 9 years of his reign were characterised by great success. Revolutionised not just Arsenal, but sort of how the whole league played. Really, had huge success in all competitions, and then the move to the Emirates probably that sort of marked the turning point in his reign. But I'd still say that the first 5-6 years at the Emirates, sort of a different kind of success, because the financial restrictions on him obviously couldn't compete with a lot of the other teams in terms of spending, but to still stay in the top 4 with a squad which on paper was not the strongest was still a huge achievement, and probably one that doesn't get recognised enough. And then I think maybe patience has worn out gradually since then, because fans see it, so we should be able to spend more than we have. But I think on the whole, he's obviously been a great manager. Been there longer than I've been alive, which is a decent shift.
That's not bad, is it, when you put it like that? Yes.
No.
I can't claim the same, unfortunately, as we were.
No.
But,
I think, obviously, he's probably... The fans are united behind him less than ever before now, except for when Mourinho comments on it. That usually rallies everyone around Wenger.
Of course, yes.
But, this could be his last year. Contract runs out. I think everyone would like him for his sake to go out with huge success, because that's what his reign deserves, I think.
I think that's very well put. I think this is one of those things where if you step back in a few years' time and look back, there won't be any doubt about his achievements. I think the point you make about moving grounds is very good. It'll be interesting to look at Spurs over the next few years, not just because they're Spurs, but because obviously they're doing this now. Now things are slightly different now. There's obviously a lot more money coming in from the TV stuff. It may be that they aren't as affected, but I almost hesitate to admit it, but they've been a good team recently. They've challenged for the top 4 recently. They've nearly managed to overtake us, although not quite, thanks to Newcastle. So it'll be interesting to see how a team, you could argue quite similar to where we were at the time we moved grounds, manages over the next few years with the payments and things that they'll have to make, because it'll be a good comparison. It's not a criticism of Spurs particularly, but it'll be interesting to see how they manage. And I think it will be one of those reigns that we look back on in hindsight and see can really appreciate it more than perhaps we can at the moment, because the point is that for this first 9 or 10 years, he's been the most successful manager ever for Arsenal. For the second half, he's been one of the least successul, if you think of the 2 halves, just purely on trophies. But that does gloss over everything else that he's done. I was trying to think of loads of things I could say, but the thing I think I've admired and been frustrated with is stubbornness, his determination to play a certain way, to have certain players play a certain way, and even when all the times that perhaps hasn't seemed like the right thing to do, and the stubbornness about not spending loads of money just for the sake of it, even though that would get all the pressure off him for at least a few weeks perhaps. I think there's plenty to admire about that, and I think whilst I've had some frustrations with it myself, I think overall I think it's a positive. There are loads of other bits and pieces. I mean, the challenges with Man United in the late 90s and early 2000s, I mean, they were, you went to a game then and it felt like nothing else had almost. There was these titanic struggles, which we occasionally got the better of, not all the time, but it did happen. The games in '99, particularly the sort of cup semi-final and all the stuff that went on then, you really felt like you were privileged enough to be at a sort of like a heavyweight contest, basically. And it was great to be part of that, but that's a long time ago now. I agree it would be great if it was going to be the end of this season, he was going to go, if we could give him something good to go off with. But hey, perhaps he's going to go for the England job. I've already seen it suggested that they might stick someone in until the end of the season and then see if Arsenal's interested. But
I can't imagine I imagine in his time at Arsenal, he's had many attractive offers, many probably more attractive than the England national job.
Yeah, a challenge would be the politest way of putting it.
Yeah, that is for sure. And he wouldn't have to get criticised about spending. Maybe he'd like it.
That's true. You can try and get some youngster in from that no one's ever heard of from France. I mean, mate, a normal person, I would say that when he decides he's hanging up his boots, as it were, at Arsenal, hanging up his coats or whatever it would be, his zips, that he would retire. But from what we know about him, it doesn't seem like retiring is his kind of thing. So who knows what he might end up doing next. But for the moment, for the 20 years, we thank him for that, and we thank him for all the many good bits, and we'll hope to have a few more before he actually gives it all up for good. So on that note, we will we'll end it. We'll get this out so people can have a listen before the game tonight, if possible. But if not, we should be back next week. So thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you. It's been good fun.
Good, and it's good to have you back, and we will hope to catch up soon. And to everyone else, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.